Okay. Hi, everyone. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me. And I'm really excited um, to be here and tell you about the show. The show officially opens in 48 minutes. Today is opening day of the show. And we've spent I've spent the past 12-hour days for the past 2 days at the gallery, um, setting it up and getting it ready and cleaning the gallery. So it's fresh and it's exciting. And it's the perfect time for me to introduce myself and introduce you to the show. Let's get going. My name's Tony. Call me T. My full name is Tanya. My pronouns are she, her. My name, I'm really comfortable with wherever you land on the full name, nickname Tony, or just T. I'm really comfortable around name stuff. So whatever works for you, I'll answer to happily. I am the curator of a show that is just about to open in Northampton at the APE Gallery on Main Street. It is co-curated by myself and my neighbor and good friend, Lillian Jackman. The show is called Mind, Memory, and Mycelium. So I'm going to press play, and as we get into this slideshow, I'll be introducing and sharing more and more about myself. So here's the little card, which Christina editing, because I couldn't for the life of me figure out how to get Laura Rogers' name off it a second time. So thank you, Christina. Appreciate that.
Welcome. Simple Photoshop. It was easy.
Okay, here we go. So the past years working as a community herbalist. I run an herb school and teach apprentices. I teach a year-round herbal medicine apprenticeship. Percent I'm all about plants. And the years studying plants, I have more and more of maker, returning to my roots, because originally I went to school for art therapy and then became an herbalist. And now I'm returning to art as therapeutic way of our well-being. But not in the sense of art therapy, in the traditional sense of art therapy. So I'm a lifelong environmentalist, and I write my art as very process-based. Process. This show is very, like the title, is all about concept and process. So I'm a process-based, nature-inspired, mixed media conceptual artist who works at the intersection of art and herbalism. So when Lillian and I have been art buddies for years. She's a printmaker and a gardener. I'm an herbalist and a printmaker and photographer. And just, we live within 5 minutes walk of one another in rural Western Mass. And most Sundays we meet for coffee. She'll walk over first thing in the morning and we'll have an 8 o'clock cup of coffee sitting in the yard and chatting about art. We call them our coffee art hours every Sunday morning. Started talking about kind of the networking that happens when women get together and talk, and how, like one thing leads to another. And I think I was like, kind of like the mycelium, like we're just spreading connections. Like with every idea stems another idea, and it just grows and grows. That's how community happens. That's how networking happens. So from that, it was Lillian that up to me and said that she would like to propose a concept to the APE gallery, and wanted to know if I would be part of it with her and co-curate it, because I am more artists than she does, and she felt like my networking help in this project. So I really came in from the networking point of view, and it was her idea. My background is in Middle Eastern, and I spend a lot of time exploring my ancestry and the symbolism. How, as a person that's always felt like an outsider, like not being American, not being from, I live in a very small town where everyone who has been here has, in order to be local, you've lived here for 6 generations, you know. And so I spent a lot of time exploring sense of place. And through these conversations, and Lillian, I'm sorry, I'm a little ADD, but we get there in the end. Lillian works with brain and how the brain works a lot, and memory. And as someone who has been diagnosed with MS several years back, she's very curious about brain connections. So that's kind of how the mind, memory, and mycelium came together. Both of us as people in health. Lillian was a nurse earlier in her career. So health, nature, memory, how it all comes together. And we both love making books. And actually, when I think back to my childhood, of my earliest childhood memories involve books. I remember school, head of school reading us Anne of Green Gables. And when she got to one of the very moving parts, like she cried as she was reading us it. And it was my first memory of an adult really showing emotion around books. And then I remember my godmother buying me Heidi from a bookstore. My godmother died some years later, so that book has always been a really big part of my childhood. And then Scary's Busy Book, memories of being a kid and just lying on my floor and making books. Like he had all these things that you cut out and create scenes and make your own books. So I feel like I have been a bookmaker ever since I was a child. And so coming together to create this show, it was really important to both of us to bring other bookmakers together and have a collaboration of bookmaking. It's important also to say that my interests, separate to this show, is promoting women in art. I've studied a lot of art history, and I'm always like blown away by how little the women actually show up in the history. So part of this show was a celebration of women and non-binary artists in the bookmaking world locally. It wasn't about excluding men, but it was about really lifting women. So that's a little about me. So the next question that we were asking was, what is a book? And I think everyone has really different ideas about what is a book, and especially now with artist books. So one of the things that Lillian and I were hoping to get right from the start was a variation of what different people consider books. And I have a collection here of quotes the different authors have asked, have answered that question in their own way. Stephen King says books are a uniquely portable magic. So I guess looking into that, he's saying the books are portable. And then the next quote, books are mirrors. You only see in them what you already have inside of you. That quote really resonates to me, because when I teach my apprenticeship, I always tell the students on day one that I'm actually helping them remember what they already know. They're not learning anything new. My job is to remind them. So that's interesting that a book reminds us of what's already inside of us. Some books leave us free and some books make us free, according to Ralph Waldo Emerson, which And then the final one that I love is: a book is a garden, an orchard, a storehouse, a party, a company. By the way, and I can't read the rest of it, but just that first
A
section.
counselor, a multitude of counselors. This
Thank you.
collection of quotes is lovely. Thank you. I love this. Fantastic.
Yeah, and I'm happy to share this whole slideshow with you guys as well. So I would just love, and if we have a lot more time, I'd love to hear how you all describe books. So maybe I should. Let's go ahead and ask. Does anyone, I mean, there are not a lot of people here. Do any of you, how would you describe, like, answer the question, what is a book?
We had we haven't really had an organized exhibition committee as New England book artists. We had our first kind of real meeting recently, this past week. And this idea kind of came up in the context of thinking about future shows, like proposing ideas for shows in the future of really what is books fill in the blank, books, titles for shows, ideas for shows, but the idea around what people feel that a book represents is seen, I think, in really nice book shows where they're trying to direct you into a part of the conversation because it's such a giant kind of subject matter of the range of what people feel books are. Like,
Yep.
your idea gets into self-perception some because yeah, yeah,
Yep.
and
Anyone else have something to say
fascinating
on?
though.
Yeah, I would say a book is a walk
Nice.
through, I'm not sure, through a lot of things, through magic, through someplace else. I'm not sure what that clause is. I have to think about that part, but
But I love the walk because, like, it's implying movement or a
yes,
journey. Like,
yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's
it's
beyond narrative and it
yeah.
includes narrative at the same time. It's both. Yeah, it's an interesting, I like that visual of that. That's nice.
Thank you, Michelle. Okay, so this is the window to the Mind Memory Mycelium show. And there are about 2,500 cyanotype circles, which I made and then stranded together. And each circle is uniquely different. So I see this window as a book because it tells a story. If you look closely, and I'm not going to point to them specifically, you'll see like baby photos and memories and photos of my great grandmother, my mother, my father. So it's a really autobiographical look at memory. And in there, there's a lot of mycelium and a lot of my favorite plants and trees. And there's some keys that you can see down the bottom, and the symbolism of the keys was unlocking the memories. So that was kind of the concept of
There's
the
handwriting
window.
too, right? There's some, is
There's,
it
there's, there's,
yeah,
there's, yes, thank you for noticing that. The
yeah.
handwriting is my grandmother's handwriting from a card she sent me on the day I was born.
Oh,
And
lovely.
then a letter my mother wrote to a family member telling them that her mother had died. So it's really kind of autobiographical and meaningful to me. And I also thought about presenting it as a scavenger hunt. There's a list of things that people can find. Like somewhere in it, there's even like Boy George of Culture Club's face. Because when I was a kid, like I was obsessed with Culture Club. So I'm like, oh my God, we have to include Boy George. And I had mentioned Richard Scarry. There's the book, the paper making page from the Richard Scarry Busy book. And obviously it was all done through cyanotype, which creates this beautiful blue. So that's kind of my interpretation.
So technically,
Kind of,
are these back mounted, two pieces back mounted to catch the thread?
exactly.
Okay, great.
And they're glued together with the gold thread, hanging down.
Excellent.
So that was kind of, and that wasn't the initial window. That's like over 6 months. That's the simplified version of what was going on in my head over the past 6 months.
Wow.
So then, underneath that, there is this ledge, like a window, and this, where we threw down all this dirt and the string, which obviously the string represents the mycelium. And as there was mycelium, we then had to create mushrooms. So I made about 30 ceramic mushrooms, which you'll see like there as well. And then about 30 cyanotype houses and some zines. And every zine has a memory from my childhood on it. And then there's some keys thrown in there as well. And this is the little piece I wrote that goes with that ledge. And I'm wondering if I can move maybe someone else could read it aloud, because I can't actually see it all because the little people, we're all covering it for me. So Christina, would you be able to read that?
Yes, I can. Yeah.
Thank you.
It's the strands of mycelium which connects is all. Yes, we are all connected, interconnected, tangled up. The keys unlock the memories, sometimes a little rusty, sometimes buried in dirt, tangled in mycelium. The houses in which our memories live sometimes make us believe we are separate from one another. But the mycelium beneath us is holding the fabric together, keeping in connected as one breathing entity.
Thank you. And I apologize for the typos. I put the wrong version in here, but we got there. This is the piece that like kind of brings together the window display. That's just it from another angle. Then in the corner of the window display is lantern book that you can see in the top right. And printed on the vellum of actual mycelium that I dug kind of out the dirt there. And now we're kind of moving on to, I'm just showing you a couple of the other books I have in the show. And the lantern book is kind of all about what we illuminate, what we remember, and it's also play on above and below, like the mycelium is under the soil, yet the light is above and all the elements that we need. And in the bottom square is a buttonhole book that I made. And this is a different one for me. And in terms of medium, it incorporates printing, photopolymer printing. You kind of see the green, that's a photopolymer print from a photograph I took of mycelium. And then each of the pages inside that book was my own personal take on Korean jimchi paper making. Because my daughter has been going back and forth from to South Korea these past couple of years. So I've been kind of looking at Korean and Asian paper making. And inside that book, between the pages, you'll find all kinds of found nature and actually some mycelium and some printmaking. So I've like throughout this I have a bunch of quotes about mycelium, mostly from Paul Stamets, who is, I mean, I just think of him as kind of one of the most brilliant mushroom minds. I'm sure most of you have heard of him. And as an herbalist, I've been using mushrooms in my herbal practice for over 20 years. And a lot of what I have learned has been from Paul Stamets. And his book, Mycelium Running, is just, the Bible on mushrooms. And then the other person that you'll see a bunch in the quotes is Merlin Sheldrake, whose book, Entangled Life, from a few years ago is also what has really inspired me as I have worked on the show. Has anyone read Entangled Life by Merlin Sheldrake?
I'm a
Recommend it.
mushroom farmer and I've only been doing it a little while. And so I haven't really exerted myself yet into the ideas of researching the conceptual jumps of like how and more philosophical ways of thinking about mushrooms. But
Uh-huh.
I definitely have been in the last like maybe 18 months and there's a an enormous amount of content out there on it and I think it's something I would love to. I wrote these names down and I'm going to get these books. I'm going to check it out.
Yeah, I highly recommend like this particular book, Entangled Life by Merlin Sheldrake.
Yeah. Yeah.
Was someone else about to speak? No, okay. So, and this is one of the prints that I have in the show. It's a photograph I took some years ago and printed it as a photopolymer print at the studio I work at. So you can just see the mycelium about the mushrooms. And if anyone doesn't know, mycelium is the kind of root system of mushrooms. Like mushroom is the fruiting body of the mycelium, but mycelium is so much more than just a root system. It's basically the fabric of all life. And here we have another quote that, again, I'm not going to read aloud because I can't see the end of it, but I will be happy to share the whole slideshow with you all. So moving on with the whole mycelium and networking, these are two books I made for the show. And I had mentioned during my bio that I'm kind of more of a conceptual artist about the process. So each one of these squares was part of my meditation on what networking means, how mycelium connects us all, how can we be better together, like how I landed to be here at this place, how the show came together. So there's a lot, I mean, some of the ongoing themes are like the threads hanging everywhere. You'll see a lot of mushrooms and mycelium, but also there's a red thread that goes through these spool books. And the books are bound around old spools. And I intentionally chose that because thread is like mycelium. And again, I was playing with the red thread theme, which a lot of cultures around the world have different stories or different folk traditions around red thread. In my Greek background and Turkish background, it's all about protection. And the same with a lot of South American cultures. People wear red thread around their wrist or red belt. And in some Asian cultures, the red thread is all about connecting with people that you're going to meet in a lifetime and people that, you're meant to walk through the world with. Sometimes a soulmate, sometimes meeting, like in my words, your chosen family. So throughout these two pieces, there are two of them, you see a lot of threads leading from one piece to the next. So these two spool books for me were really a meditation of what's important to me in the world. And also there's some memory pieces because the one that's lying down, there's a map in the middle and it shows how my ancestry came together from kind of the Middle East and from Athenian Greece and kind of met in this island and then spread out. So again, it's all about this kind of mycelial connection. There are also some pieces that you see on the one hanging on the wall from a Dioscorides herbal text, which is the first Greek herbal text that we still have that came from 500 BC. So my work, again, is really conceptual. It doesn't necessarily make sense to everyone, but it's very process based. So I find with trying to get results for shows, feel like I benefit from the 6 months of working on a show, and it's all knowledge, experience, stories, right? And then it's hard to materialize them into like one piece. But each piece definitely tells a story. So this quote was my absolute favorite. And it says, books and doors, same thing. Can't quite see you. What is
You
that?
open them and you go through into another world.
The world. Like, that's my ultimate favorite quote, which brings us on to this piece, which is a piece that I have up in the show. And it's obviously an old printer tray, which I have above is a cyanotype sky. And then we have eco-printed flowers and seeds. And then we have two photopolymer layers. The lichen is the green and the mycelium. And then if you look closely, you'll see that there are a lot of actual dried mushrooms which I gathered and lichen. And this, again, in terms of a book, like, you can read it, it tells a story. And my kind of main interest over the years has been curiosity cabinets and the whole art of collections and how that all comes together, and specifically the art of Joseph Cornell I love. So I feel like that piece was really inspired by the boxes of Joseph Cornell, who happens to be one of my favorite artists. So that to the end of the part of the show that's kind of sharing some of the pieces I made and my interpretation on mind, memory, mycelium, and books. And then I wanted to share, so Lillian Jackman is my co-curator friend. She's a landscaper, artist, as well as a printmaker. And this is her display in the middle of this. And what she has done is she has created these amazing ceramic figures that lead, and they're like her alter ego from different parts of her life. And each, like, you walk around it and that tells a story, and each person or ceramic piece is connected to a book she created to explore that different part of her life. It's a really beautiful and intricate piece. So I hope that you'll get to see it. And then, as well as Lillian, there are 15 amazing artists that are part of this show. And here's everyone, Catherine included, who's here, and Christina, and also members Anita, Laurel, who's a good friend of mine. And then there's several artists from the ZMA's printmaking group, which I'm also, that's where I work from. So these are the amazing artists. And I shared some of the work of some of the artists. I didn't get all of, I haven't photographed all of them yet, but this is Nancy Doniger here on the bigger show, a friend of mine, love her work. She's also a printmaker. And then I think we have Christina's mushroom book on the top right, and then Sarah Khan's spice paper on the bottom. Project that I'm just blown away by. I spent half of yesterday not working because I had to look at every single page of that book and study it. Then this is Yuki's work, the bigger one. Yuki is the artist in residence presently from ZMA's, and she's here from Tokyo, Japan. So that's kind of exciting to have Yuki part of the show as well. And then I think it's one of Anita's books right at the top. And then this book here is another herbalist, a mushroom book on the bottom. And she's created some mushroom paper that she's showing, and some prints and watercolors that she's made. Really, I mean, I'm so impressed with book. And, I'm going to get back there this afternoon before a lot of people are there and just study every piece. I'm just blown away by the whole show. And thank you for participating. I'm so grateful that people submitted the most beautiful art from it. And that's all I have in terms of the slideshow, but I wanted to respond to something that Christina had asked at the beginning. So let me see if I can stop sharing my screen and come back to the, oh, that's my contact information. Um, and I'm coming back to the stop sharing. Here we go. Here we are. And I wanted to respond to Christina. You mentioned curation.
Oh, we lost your audio, honey.
Theo,
It's kind of coming in and out all of a sudden there. Just keep talking for me.
keep talking. Am I back?
You're back. Okay.
I don't know what happened there, but I do live in the hill towns and we have really bad Wi-Fi.
Okay.
Anyway, so I wanted to respond to Christina. You had mentioned collaboration and whether means, and say nothing excites me more at this stage of my life than collaborating with other artists. That's in every way, not just in art. I think that the way forward is collaboration. I think we need to learn, and I mean, this is so related to mushrooms and mycelium and nature, because nature knows how to collaborate. Nature works with all the elements in order to keep going. Nature keeps going, constantly, dealing with fires and floods and weird temperatures, but just knows how to keep going. It keeps going by working with all the elements together. And I think that we need to learn from nature, learn from mycelium, and create more and more projects where we work together as teams and not as individuals. So to answer that, I am 100% about collaboration. Hit me up. I am especially interested in collaborative art projects that include nature and the environment and because like I said, one of the things I'm really researching now is art history from a woman's perspective. And men, and this is not an anti-male, not anti-male, but for years and years, women's art has not been shown. Women's names as artists have not been shared. You go into gallery and it's predominantly men's art. So I feel like at this stage, the other important thing to me is lifting women's artists' voices and spaces. So there you go, Christina. Yes to collaboration in every way possible.
Yeah,
So
it does fit really well with the idea of the mycelial network. For me, there's another component that is not as like positive that, in my opinion, is a positive, which is the idea of mushrooms being morticians of the woods and the kind of association some people have with them being kind of macabre because of that, which for me, I kind of like. I like the fact that something can have such a crazy array of perceptions by people and conceptual possibilities and layers. Not only is it a network into the light, it's also a network into the decay and all these other ideas. So I think it's kind of connected, and it makes sense to have it be all connected. So
well,
I
light and
yeah,
dark.
that's that
Without dark,
too.
there is no light.
Exactly.
Like, and the cycle of life. I
Yeah.
think as people, we, don't always accept the full cycle of life.
Yeah.
We over focus on one part of life, but don't.
Yeah.
So I agree with you fully. It's
Yeah, yeah, and the also another thing that I've also reflected a lot on, and one of my pieces is called "Last Gasps." Is the idea of the spore spray, the idea that being cut down creates this understanding in the plant that, oh gosh, I've got to get busy and take care of the next generation, and they have this kind of like crazy intuitive, procreative, you know, plume that occurs, and it's beautiful and can also look like other things too, which I think is another part of why I find levels of mushroom thought and visuals so wonderful, because they do reference irises, like eyeballs. And
I love that. Yeah.
well, I found as a feminist, I found nipple as well, which I think is an interesting thing. But visually, I think they're just got this haunting, fascinating beauty about them that are so different than like the idea of like I'm eating a mushroom. Just the
Yep.
range of all of that is mind blowing. Yeah.
And one really important thing I failed to mention, things like coming the pandemic. Shit.
I need to
Why?
stop you for a second because we haven't been able to hear you since you said when one more important thing and then and then it cut out. So let's start there again. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Please do. If I'm just talking to myself, please do stop me.
It was the
um,
timing of it was interesting.
that's so funny. One more important thing, and that's okay.
Yeah,
So the
you want to
since
know. I mean, it is important.
the pandemic, ship mushroom clubs and fungal clubs and mycelial has something crazy. So I asked myself why, and what I believe has happened is the busyness when the whole world stops, when everything comes to a halt for a minute and people get outside and start walking, the important things in what is important is this mycelial networking, is understanding the fabric of life. Like mushrooms are important. Like it's not an accident that all of a sudden you can't go into, a boutique without being inundated by mushroom clothes and mushroom jewelry and it's because there is so much more and mushroom and mycelium than what meets the eye. Like there is a deep longing that people might not be able to verbalize, but they are sensing
Yeah.
around mushrooms. So
Well,
that's
there's
my
a lot
deep
there,
thought. I
huh?
hope you heard it.
A lot there.
There, yeah. Does anyone have any questions for me for the last few minutes?
I do have a question, Tony.
Michelle?
In one, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Michelle. Yes.
Um, in one slide, you mentioned mushroom paper. Is that actually paper made from mushrooms?
Yes, yes.
Ooh.
There's an amazing book. Can't think of email later. I can't for the life of me.
I'll share it with everyone.
Do you want to give me, if
email
you give me 1 second, I can go and grab it. Can I disappear for 1 second?
Oh yeah, I'd love to know more about that.
Okay, hold on a second.
I've been making paper from dried from leaves, from plant leaves.
It's probably similar. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. This is the book.
Mushrooms.
Miriam Rice.
Rice, an amazing book.
Miriam Rice. Rice?
She talks
Yeah.
Rice, Miriam C. Rice. And there's a whole chapter here on paper from mushrooms.
Great, thank you.
Yep. Highly recommended. Any other questions?
Thank you for this presentation. I really enjoyed it. And I'm not going to be able to get to Northampton before March 2nd. I'm having surgery in just a little bit. So I'm going to miss seeing it up close. And I'm disappointed about that because it looks absolutely beautiful.
I'm hoping to do a Zoom walkthrough and make a video of it and then post it on my webpage.
I'm going to do a post on the NEBA website that will have a link to this video, but we could also have a link to that as well. And I did take some photos of the members' work. Tony's work had not all, she was so busy being the curator and helping everybody else that I wasn't there when her work was actually displayed all the way. I did get some nice views of the beautiful window display with the cyanotype circles, just looks fantastic. And we did have a nice chance to meet. We got to meet Kathy's mom, and yeah, we got to get to say hello to people that we don't usually get to be in front of, except for on Zoom meetings. So it was kind of nice. The
Yeah,
other
I'm hoping to get
artist,
there
beautiful.
when no
Beautiful.
one's there, get there before it opens one day and just do a walkthrough with my camera and make a video.
Yeah,
So I'll be
but,
happy to
we
share
can-
that.
we'll be able to see a little bit more via the pictures I took and your link and all that on the webpage. Maybe in like by next week, I'll have that up. I'll try to get it up soon because the show's, running soon.
It's a quick show.
We got the fair coming, so Kathy's coming. to the
Oh, we should
fair. She'll
also
be at
talk
the
about
NEBA
that
table,
quickly.
and I'll be at my table, and I think Laurel has a table. I don't know
Have
if
a table.
does Anita have
Anita has a table as well.
a
Yep.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so it should be fun to be able to spend the day together and say hi to the book community in Northampton, which seems to be alive and thriving. Yeah.
Driving through ZMAs. ZMAs has a lot of book
Oh
people.
yeah, and we've done some
are
events
members.
there too. We like to go on field trips when they have cool things happening. Yeah.
It's a great place. Well,
It
thank you. I
does.
really look forward to seeing everyone at the opening and at the book fair. Thanks for having me. I hope this worked for you. And
I was thrilled. Good to hear all
Good.
about it. Lovely.
thank you. Thanks so
Thank
much.
you.
Bye, everyone.
everybody.
Bye-bye.